Hello my friends, the situation for Russia with the security of its own military parade in Moscow is getting tougher. There is the great chance for Ukraine to aim the parade with the drones. Despite Russia not having those vehicles, military equipment, but still there are many of the Russian soldiers who will be presented, potentially thousands of those, together with Putin and main Russian generals. The previous years I was quite skeptical about the Ukrainian strikes on parade, but now I'm not almost sure, but the chance for it is very high because Russia violated the ceasefire that was announced by President Zelensky, by Ukrainian government on 5th of May, starting from midnight. I'm recording this video morning, May the 5th, and Russia has already hit multiple of the Ukrainian cities, settlements, villages and towns. Also, Russia continued its attacking actions on the front lines. So basically, Russia ignored the ceasefire that was proclaimed by Zelensky. Russia initially put its own ceasefire on May 8th and 9th just to make their parade successful. But Ukraine said, if you want ceasefire that much, we can start earlier, from May the 5th. And if everything goes well, we're gonna extend it till May the 9th and you'll have your parade. So as the result of those ceasefires, there should have been 5 days at least for sides not to shoot on each other and not to hit the energy and military infrastructure. And from the midnight, Ukraine actually halted those strikes, yes, after a huge wave of the drone attacks on Russian military infrastructure in Crimea. At least Belbek, Kacha, Saki airfields were targeted. I'm still waiting for more information of what particularly was hit there, but midnight, come on, ceasefire, no one is shooting, and if everything goes well, May the 9th will be your day, Russia. You may put even your vehicles there, your tanks, mighty armata, whatsoever, yeah, to show to the people how mighty the second army in the world really is, then the fact they are not capable to achieve their goals of the special military operation for already 5th year. But Russians did the most stupid thing, as for me. Not just they violated the ceasefire, but they also hit one of the kindergartens. For example, this one is in the Sumy region. There is the fire. I wonder if kids were out there. Well, some of the people were taken out from the building. I see elderly people. For now, I don't have the details about the casualties, but this is outrageous. Russia not only violated the ceasefire, they attacked the civilian infrastructure for purpose. There was the Shahid drone that was diving into the building. And this image is also coming from Ukrainian-controlled Drushkivka. You may see something is definitely burning there, so Russia is not following Ukrainian ceasefire proposal. So Ukraine will not follow Russian ceasefire proposal. It is already understandable. Yeah, Russia officially announced its own ceasefire. They spoke with Donald Trump about it. But Ukraine also announced its own ceasefire. But Russia said today no with those numerous of the strikes. And again, the military action on the front line continues, even though Ukrainian army has received the order not to attack Russian positions. So yesterday there was the big question what Putin would choose, to be humiliated by Ukrainian government openly by Zelensky, or to wait for the possible next humiliation, just postponing it, because Ukrainian drones may definitely visit Russian parade now. And Russian dictator would look like he is not capable to guarantee the security even for its own military force deep inside Russia, in capital of it, Moscow. I think that this violation of the ceasefire is the personal decision of Putin. He hates Zelensky, that's 100% personally. That is what Donald Trump write about, that both of them, Zelensky and Putin, they hate each other. Well, most of the Ukrainians, they hate Russian regime and Putin personally because he started this war. He announced a special military operation February 24th, 2022, which is still ongoing. A completely unprovoked attack by mighty nuclear superpower that destroyed multiple of the Ukrainian settlements, cities, towns and villages, and also human lives, of course. That's why it's normal, for example, for Zelensky to hate Putin. But despite his hate, he is willing to negotiate with the Russian dictator personally. At the same time, Putin refuses any sort of the direct talks with Ukraine, and he sends absolute clowns for the contact groups to negotiate. For example, in Istanbul it was, or in UAE. Yeah, I'm telling about Medinsky, Russian representative who is completely incompetent and doesn't have the weight out there even in the Russian politics, in the Russian government. He was sent there by Putin just to humiliate those agreements. At the same time, Ukraine representatives were at the very high level together with Rustem Umerov, and later on even Budanov took part in negotiations. So because Putin doesn't want to negotiate, he should be forced to do it. And that is what Zelensky also said, that you see, Russia is scared to deploy their vehicles on military parades. So we are already pushing Russia to retreat at some level. But of course it's not enough. We should pressure it more with sanctions, with more restrictions applied on Russian oil, for example. And of course Ukraine should have more of the tools to perform long-range strikes, because they work. And now there is the great chance that Russia will understand on May the 9th that it's better to follow Ukrainian proposals for the ceasefire. Otherwise you'll get hit right into the heart of your own propaganda. And yeah, I read just reports from the Russian channels about the military parades. They are canceling lots of them in different Russian cities. Well, I think canceling the parade in Moscow is the self-humiliation for Russia. They should have agreed on Ukrainian not demands, but proposals, and their parade would have been safe. But now they're canceling everything. In Crimea, for example, they're afraid of Ukrainian strikes. In Voronezh, it also was cancelled. I don't know how, but they wrote that the military parade will go in the form of online meeting. Online, like Zoom meeting for all of the Russians in Voronezh. But Russian government also warned that it will cut internet for those days for the security reasons in multiple of the Russian cities, including Voronezh. So what Russians have to do? Watch a military parade from the Red Square of Moscow on TV? Yeah, it would be awesome if Ukraine cancels that as well, and the Russian Z-Patriot community would of course raise lots of the questions of where are we heading to, what is happening. We are unable even to make our own parades on 9th of May in Moscow. And I see that Russians have already deployed lots of the mobile groups out there in Moscow to protect the capital city. They put even snipers, they put drone interceptors, but whether it helps, it depends. It depends on the scale of the Ukrainian drone attack, which I'm sure has the great chance to happen, especially after today's Russian action of violation of Ukrainian ceasefire with the strikes deliberately on civilian infrastructure. A freaking kindergarten, this is too much. Well, for Russia, I'm not surprised, but Ukraine will respond for that. And I think that the response will be very, very interesting. And for sure for Ukraine, the ceasefire is more profitable since it will have the time to prepare the defense lines and reorganize the forces. But for Russia, you know, they have this some sort of the pace, and how they achieve limited success sometimes is that they exhaust Ukrainian positions, Ukrainian defense lines, all the time advancing further and further with the small groups. If there is the ceasefire for 30 days, Russian soldiers will be even demoralized. It would be difficult for the Russian local commanders to explain to their soldiers that they need to go to that hell once again, that they're gonna go with one-way ticket to Ukrainian positions. In the best case scenario, they're gonna put some of the Russian flag being photographed from the Russian drone, and that's it. Their mission is fulfilled. I believe that no one from the Russian soldiers would like to go for attacking actions after the 30 days of the ceasefire, after staying safe behind the front lines. No, they would not like to do it. Well, for Ukrainians, there is no such a drama because the Ukrainian army is already in defense mostly. Just some of the occasional Ukrainian assault brigades are counterattacking in separate spots of the front lines, like for example in Zaporizhia direction, also in Dnipropetrovsk direction. Some of the limited Ukrainian counterattacks were organized also in Konstantinivka direction, but that is just to mess up with the Russian plans, with their collapse tactics. And Russians definitely want to encircle Konstantinivka and get that settlement at least this year. We'll see. And after all, Ukraine is fighting on its own territory, so there is no alternate variant for Ukraine of not to defend itself. So Ukrainian soldiers, they understand that, and first of all, they're not going on attacks massively. Staying in defense is always better. There is construction work. I have to change the location. My friends, just a short reminder for you, please press like to this video and subscribe for the channel, it matters a lot. And also, of course, if you can, you may support my job on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below, or you may join membership of YouTube channel by pressing button join. Thank you so much. You are making my job happening. Yes, so this content is possible just because of your support. My friends, you're awesome, and let's continue with the video. Alright, and just now Zelensky commented that Russia has violated the ceasefire. Also, he mentioned yesterday's strikes where nearly 30 of Ukrainians were perished. Several of the Russian aviation gliding bombs hit Kramatorsk and Slavyansk civilian residential areas, and unfortunately, yes, there were casualties. Dozens of wounded people were delivered to hospitals, even though it happened before the Ukrainian ceasefire, but that attack was horrible. It's one more war crime that Russia continued to do in Ukraine. But later on, May the 5th, Russians continued military actions, even launching drones on Ukraine. So at midnight, I checked that the airspace in Ukraine was clear. I went to sleep, but later on there were air raids in eastern Ukrainian oblasts, in regions. And also on the front lines, 1,820 direct military confrontations were recorded. Zelensky said that he is grateful for Ukrainian soldiers who defended Ukrainian positions. The last night, Ukraine clearly stated that it would act in kind, taking into account Russian persistent appeals through the media and social networks asking for ceasefire during the Moscow's parade. It is obvious to any reasonable person that full-scale war and the daily murdering of people are bad time for public celebrations. As of today, we can confirm that the Russian side has disrupted the ceasefire regime. Based on the evening reports from our military and intelligence, we will decide on our further actions. Glory to Ukraine. And I think the actions will happen. I think there is the huge chance, absolutely great one, for Ukraine to cancel the Russian military parade in Moscow. Well, I think that now Ukraine absolutely should cancel that parade. And Ukraine, by the way, is not that dependent on the White House administration any longer, on Donald Trump personally. It is understandable for everyone that Donald Trump is unconvincible for him to support Ukraine. Everything Trump does in those Ukrainian, American, Russian negotiations is he favoring one side, and that's Putin, Russian Federation. Well, now Trump is being disturbed by his own war in Iran, sorry, not the war, special military operation, and future midterm elections in Congress, so he's busy, but still sometimes he's commenting Ukrainian topic. And there was some of the wrong information in media yesterday that Donald Trump said something praising Ukraine and the Ukrainian army, that the Ukrainian army is the best in Europe and they're helping at least. Well, Trump didn't say so. It was the interviewer himself, Hugh Hewitt of the channel. Donald Trump there just commented that Europe is disappointing, NATO didn't help us, and usual blah 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 stuff, broken record. But at the same time, Donald Trump didn't argue with the hoster of the interview that the Ukrainian army is not capable or something like that. So Donny is the guy who likes those powerful people with the guts, yeah? And maybe if Russia gets humiliated on May the 9th during their military parade, maybe Trump might change his approach to Putin personally, seeing how miserable he really is, but maybe not. It's all Trump. That guy is unpredictable. I do not expect anything good from him. Well, it's good that the PUR program is still out there, that Europeans are buying weapons for Ukraine as the part of the 90 billion euro support, or it's better to say loan for Ukraine. At least like that. And yesterday there were good news about the approval of JDAMs, aviation gliding bombs for Ukraine, the selling of JDAMs, not direct delivery. But it is the most versatile tool for Ukrainian aviation to operate on Russian positions, together with the drones, of course. But JDAMs might be really useful in demolishing Russian positions entirely. Buildings where Russian soldiers hide or their vehicles. This is a very good tool and very versatile, as I mentioned. But unfortunately, in general, the United States government, for now, I would say, is not on the Ukrainian side. It is forcing Ukraine to capitulate from Donbass. It is following a Russian plan to occupy those regions without any sort of fight, the most robust and defended territories of Ukraine. And I understand this behavior from Donald Trump because he doesn't care about Ukraine or Ukrainians. He just wants to finish the war no matter what it takes. And if it means for Ukraine to capitulate, well, it's okay-ish for him. He just wants to put one more ended war to his list of the finished wars. Yeah, at the same time, he started his own in Iran, and he continued to threaten Cuba. Yesterday he commented about that as well, that he might use air carriers to occupy Cuba. But we'll see. So far with Iran, it's the dead end with its Epic Fury operation, which, by the way, was ended. It was proclaimed by Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio yesterday. They even ended their humanitarian mission to escort commercial vessels through the strait because Iran retaliated on UAE oil facilities, and also it hit many of the civilian ships. So nothing is working, there is no solution, and it keeps Donald Trump busy with that topic for now. By the way, guys, if you want to know more about the situation in Iran from me, yeah, I'm not that competent on Iran, but I have my own personal opinion, which I share on my other channel. It's called Captain Dennis. I call it a trash channel because there I review some of that drama. I put my own opinion on different topics, and maybe it could be interesting for you. The link for it is in the video description right below. Thank you. And about the Russian war against Ukraine, well, for now there is also a dead end for Russia. We also see that Ukraine has the problems, and probably I'm going to record a separate video about the issues in the Ukrainian army and in Ukrainian government in general. That video could be really long, and maybe I'm going to go to forest tomorrow and record that one as well, because it is also important to know the insides of Ukraine and whether Ukraine may overcome this pressing from Russia, which is out there all the time. But the main thing that despite all of those problems in Ukraine, Russia is still unable to reach its goals in Ukraine, no matter what it does. Moreover, Ukraine takes initiative and with the long-range strikes even may frighten Russia, even with military parade. Before, the threat was out there, but it was not that vivid. Now Ukraine showed that it has multiple of the drones, multiple of the missiles, and Moscow is already within the range of being definitely hit. At any time, day, night, it doesn't matter. And the number of the air defense Russia lost for the last time, now they have to send everything left to Moscow to protect their parade and Putin personally. But at the same time, Russian army requires the same air defense systems on the front lines in Ukraine, because there are Ukrainian drones flying and Ukrainian fighter jets are dropping aviation gliding bombs on Russian positions. Well, at the same time, Putin is so scared about his parade that he started the nuclear exercise. Well, not with a real nuclear warhead, but with missiles capable to carry those. The exercise will be conducted between May the 6th and 10th in the far eastern regions of Russia. The plan to launch several of the ICBMs plus Kapustin Yar launching site is also getting ready for possible tests. So Putin in a way wants to threaten whom? Maybe Europe, or maybe even United States of America, that if Ukraine attacks us on 9th of May, you see what we have? A nuclear missile capable to fly very, very long. Yeah, we can do it. We have nuclear weapons. Putin, everyone knows that you have nuclear weapons. You don't need to show it all the time to everyone. United States, they also have nukes. France, UK. You are not alone in the club, and yes, nuclear weapons, it matters a lot, but also what matters the most is the willing to use it. Putin, based on what we know about that guy, there is a very, very low probability for him to use nukes. He might use those, yes, but only in case of the imminent threat for his power, like really cornered. For now, Putin is still fighting on other countries' territory, not in Russia, so he is not risking that much. But still, with the decline of the Russian economy, there could be the end for Putin, and he might not realize it. He is like this frog which has been boiled by Ukraine and by his own actions, stupid actions. He started this war in Ukraine, he leads it, and he still doesn't want to exit it. Before, Donald Trump proposed to him to finish it, to keep those territories under control, and that's it. Ceasefire, long-term peace agreement with Ukraine, and your economy will start to function once again. Sanctions are being lifted, everything is okay-ish. You're gonna get the same status quo as before. And the Europeans, they agreed on that as well. Yeah, they were saying that Ukrainian territorial integrity matters, and no one would recognize those occupied territories, of course, well, except Russia and North Korea. So it was definitely a good thing for Putin to agree on everything of that, and definitely to stop the war. He is losing so many soldiers, but he's so blinded and he is willing to continue. Well, we'll see then. On May the 9th, there could be lots of the Ukrainian drones flying in Moscow. After the day's violation of the ceasefire by Russians, Ukraine has justification to hit Russia really hard on their proposed ceasefire days. Basically, ceasefire will not exist. It is also interesting how not just the Russian economy collapses, but also Russian influence abroad. Like, for example, in Mali, we know what is happening there. Local Tuaregs, Azawats tribes, they're getting more and more territories, cities. Russian army is just forced to retreat. They basically betrayed the junta leadership of Mali, whom they promised to protect, and they say goodbye, we're leaving. Moreover, they're leaving those junta soldiers in the barracks, and you know what is happening to them later on, after those rebels are coming, and probably they're Putin, those junta soldiers. Also, a Russian military ally, Armenia, hosted a big European meeting with European leaders presented. Also, Zelensky went there, and Armenia proclaimed its vector for the development as the part of European future integrity. So they want to apply for European Union membership somewhere in the future. By the way, before Georgia was also looking at that way, but now Georgia unfortunately has some of the pro-Russian government. But it's temporary. Locals, they will not elect those, I think, the next election cycle. So Russia is not just being humiliated by Ukrainian long-range strikes on Russian oil infrastructure, and not only, but also in general on world arena. In a long-term perspective, I don't see how Russia may reach its goals. In Ukraine, well, elsewhere, in its own economy, in international relations. It is a doomed state, and it has this inertia just because of the big economy, big resources. So unfortunately, Ukraine will have to fight for some years for Russia to finally collapse and disintegrate. Or maybe there should be some of the regime change. Well, I give just a small percent for Russia to be as big as it is right now in the future. I think that those republics of Russia, they will just get their own independence and disintegrate Russia as we know it. I understand that I already told it on this channel, but I don't see the other future for Russia. Again, in a long-term perspective, this war in Ukraine may continue for 5 years, for 7 years. Unfortunately, it will be like that. And we see that Putin is willing to sacrifice absolutely everything, social care, med care, just to fuel the war economy. And people ask me when the war is going to over. Well, while Putin has his power in Russia, it will continue, unfortunately. It may stop tomorrow if Putin loses his power, at least like that. So it's the necessary condition to replace Putin to stop the war, because he could be blamed by the rest of the Russian regime. Oh, it's all Putin, it's not us. But there could be also another scenario. Then the war may continue even with Putin not in power, if the current Putin circle continue his policy. But if Putin goes, there is the chance. And Ukraine does everything to make it faster. And guys, thank you so much for watching videos that I am outdoors, and also you may support my job on Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below. You may also join membership of the channel by pressing button join. Thank you so much, you are making this content possible with your kind support. Also, please don't forget to press like to this video and subscribe for the channel. We are on the way to reach 1 million subscribers here. My friends, you're awesome. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.